Would you like to sit here? Real fine. Thank you. We got it. You got that same. You do it yourself, and maybe they'll follow you. You know, there's all kinds of. You know where I'm not taking credit for every decision, but anything that you good crowd there. Okay.
We're all legit.
Might take more than a text.
Good morning, friends. Welcome to Grace St. Luke's Church. We are, for those of you joining us online, we're especially glad that you're able to do so. We are here in Transcending Hall, and we welcome Stephan Crump. As we go throughout the program, there will be an opportunity for some time of question and answer. But before we begin, I'll invite us into a time of prayer. The Lord be with you. Let us pray. Gracious God, on this new and perfect day, we give you thanks and praise for the gift of life, and especially for the gift of music, which feeds our souls in so many ways. Thank you for Stephan Crump and for his music and all that he brings to it. Be with us today as we engage, as we reflect, especially on the feast of St. Luke, who was known for healing and making the lives of others better, which is music for our souls. Be with us as we engage. Amen. So just a bit of introduction. If you saw the title of the program, we have Music Transcending from Memphis to the World with Stephan Crump. And Stephan, who's very talented as a bassist, a composer, a band leader. He's been lauded in many ways, and I've personally had the privilege of hearing him in different cities, but our connection started here in Memphis many years ago, and it's nice to have him back. I went last night to Crosstown to the Green Room, and he offered a great performance there, so I'm so glad that we're both awake and we're here the next day, and to others who will be able to be there. But the conversation today, and it will be a conversation, is how music can touch our souls. We all enjoy music in a lot of different ways. And so what Stephan will do is offer his gifts. He'll share his gifts with us today. We will hear from him vocally, speaking-wise in just a moment. But to begin our program, we will hear from him first musically. Welcome, Stephan Crump.
Thank you. That was McCoy Tyner's Search for Peace. that piece is entitled Beatrice, and that's a Sam Rivers composition.
So thinking about music and the importance that it plays over the years, as Stephan and I have become friends and would talk about music from time to time, I was really glad that he said he would come and be with us here this morning. Today, there's so much to celebrate in the life at Grace St. Luke's, so much abundance. This is the day we kick off our stewardship campaign. We celebrate Luke, the evangelist and healer. We're doing a lot of things that all are about community, about building community. And so Stephan has such a story, a wonderful story, being a native Memphian, and I thought it would be good to hear from him, to tell us more. Tell me, I know a lot, but I would love for you to share a bit about your story, your connection to Memphis, and we can start there.
Thank you, Ollie. Well, the answer to this is something that's ever evolving, and my perspective and appreciation for where I come from, the people and the place I come from is I'm always learning about that. And there was a lot growing up in Memphis to take for granted, and but certainly, so we're talking the 70s and 80s when I was growing up here, and I was blessed to be in a family that was very engaged in the arts, certainly a lot of music, but I come from, my father's an architect. Both my parents are amateur musicians. My father's a drummer and my mother plays piano. My father was also an avid jazz fan, and so there were great jazz records playing all the time in the house. And in fact, his turntable setup was on the other side of the wall from my bedroom, and I have a pet theory that's my lullaby every evening while I was falling to sleep was the bass resonating through the wall. Paul Chambers and Ron Carter and Ray Brown and Percy Heath, many of my heroes to this day. At the same time, right, so my dad's an architect. There's generations of architects on my mom's side. My maternal grandmother was a painter and visual artist. My uncle Stephan Crump is an artist with wood. He was one of my, you call it I never know what to call what he does. Furniture maker, but it's basically sculptures with wood, and he was a hero of mine growing up, and I got to spend summers working in his shop in my college years, which was formative. What else? There was lots of, my grandmother, Diana Wallace Crump, was a very, I think of her as a literary house cat. She was always curled up with a tome. Most of the time when I would show up at her house, which was very often, she would be engaged in a book, and she would greet me at the door. First, she would make me spit out my chewing gum, but then she would take me, her first question would be, "Darling, do you know what a lanyap is?" or whatever the word may be. And I would say, "No, Granny, I don't." And she would take my hand and walk me up to the giant dictionary at the top of the stairs, which was on a beautiful stand that my Uncle Stephen had made. And we would look up the word together. And she also was a great storyteller. She ran Burke's Bookstore in the 80s. I spent a lot of time there. So there's a lot of storytelling, a lot of sculpture, and a lot of music, and I feel like that's that's a big part of what I aspire to in my music making. I'm hoping to sculpt waves of energy and tell stories with the bass. So a lot of live music, of course, just a lot. My parents took me out to hear a lot of stuff, and I just felt like my recollection is being surrounded by the arts and creativity. And so I always heard the bass. As I said, I wanted to play the bass. My mom made me start on piano when I was probably 6. I studied classical piano for 6 or 7 years, and then when I got to junior high school at White Station, I started playing alto saxophone in the concert band there, and at the same time I got my first electric bass. And my older brother Patrick, who was a great guitar player and also a great drummer, but he mostly played guitar, he had a power trio with the Garner brothers, Tommy and Richard, and Richard was the bassist, and every rehearsal they had and every gig they had, I would sit at Richard's feet and just look up at him playing an off-brand P bass with a pick, which is the coolest thing you can do. And but Richard was the older brother, and he went away to college, so I was 13 when I got my first bass. And for Christmas, and by the next fall, Richard was gone, and I got the gig with my older brother's band. And so just started playing a lot of rock, and that went to blues and R&B and funk, and a couple of different really great rock bands. And thankfully, Tommy Garner was an excellent drummer, which is so important for everything, but certainly if you're trying to learn how to groove, to have a great drummer to work with. And then late in high school, I just, as much as I was loving all this rock music that I was learning, really started to gnaw at me. I could pick out those lines, I could learn the lines off the records, but the jazz records my dad was playing, I just didn't know where to even start. I didn't see the entry point into learning that music, so I found a teacher at University of Memphis and started studying jazz in earnest, and then that led to when I went away to Amherst College. That's when I started playing the upright bass as well, and I still love the electric bass, and I still love playing a lot of different kinds of music. I think of it as engaging in different modes of music, but I also see it all as related and informing one another, and certainly distilling to common fundamentals. So when I got to Amherst, I got deep into studying jazz, and at the same time I befriended a wonderful guitarist who was from Brooklyn and had weekly gigs. He was like the young hotshot guitar kid on what was the tail end of a great scene in the village there of funk and blues and R&B clubs. And so he had weekly gigs. So as of my freshman year, I was going down to New York City with him, and he would hire a local drummer and a local rhythm guitarist from the scene, and we would play, and I got a feel for not only the level of musicianship and music making that was happening on that scene, but also the fact that these people were really resonating with me and enjoying playing with me, and it just felt great. And so I got a sense that I could do that, that was a path for me, and at the same time, the other clarification that I'll add is that I had been very into math and physics in high school, and I was planning to pursue a double major in physics and music. But as much as I loved the physics courses, the major track physics classes were just taking all my time, and I wasn't able to spend the time with the music that I needed to, and I started to lose it. And so that really clarified for me that I'm a musician, and my path. And so then when I read a lot of other things to this story, of course, but so I knew from my freshman year, let's say, that as soon as I graduated, I was headed to New York, and just to make a life in music, and without much more specifics to it, and it's been tricky and ever evolving, and but it's been such a blessing to find a way to do that ever since.
Thanks for that. So I'm mindful that you have traveled a lot with your music, and hearing even your story of Memphis and New York and Amherst, and as you've traveled throughout the world, where music, which is a unifier, right? It's that universal thing that touches our hearts and brings people together. What's a highlight from your world travel? What country were you in where you were in a particular setting and were doing what you do, and it in a lot of ways was transcendent for you? And you might have countless stories like that, but if there were one in particular, I'd love for you to share with us such an experience.
Oh my goodness, that's such a good and fair question, but I'm blessed to say that there have been so many life-changing experiences, and you never know when it's going to happen. I mean, it doesn't matter what the venue is, what the country is, how many people are there. It's really it's really all about the nature of our presence, and having that exchange flow. There is a thing sometimes that happens when there is struggle. I've had some struggle to get to the gig. There's so many stories I could tell of one of which was years ago, was it 2013, when the volcano erupted in Iceland, and I was with a trio. We had just started a tour in Norway, and we had to get from Norway to southern Germany the next night. In the morning, we got up at 4 a.m. to the lobby, and there was news that all the airports were shutting down, and the ash was covering the sky, and all of Europe was shut down. And basically, I took notes of this experience on my phone, but we spent the next 2 days straight in every kind of vehicle you can imagine except an airplane, working our way from Norway, the eastern edge of Norway, all the way around, crossing. At one point, we were on a train that actually rolled onto a ferry. This was in Sweden, to cross over, and then and all the trains were packed with people because of the airline shut down. So we were standing in the hallways of the train, and for basically 2 days. And then we finally, without going into further detail of that, we finally got to the gig in southern Germany, like an hour and a half after we were supposed to have begun, and just sort of fell onto the stage. But the energy of it just wound up being one of the most incredible gigs, even though we weren't warmed up. We hadn't slept in 2 days. We had been standing. We were falling to pieces, but that energy that happened was otherworldly. What people lifted us up, and that enabled us to give that right back to them. So that was one example of a really special one.
Wow, thank you. So before you play another piece for us, it's obvious that music is a spiritual expression for you. I've heard your music, I've seen you offer it. It comes through as you offer it. The spirituality of music, music of any sort, which again touches our spirits and our souls, and it feeds us in different ways, but your particular approach as a musician, just to reflect for a moment in a sacred space about the sacredness of music and its spirituality for you. You have mentioned to me before that it is that very deeply, and I'd love for you to share about that and then offer a piece for us.
Thank you, Ollie. Well, on a very simple, uninteresting answer level, I don't understand music as being anything else. That's not an option for me. But to attempt at a little bit deeper answer, I think I alluded to this a moment ago of sculpting and sculpting energy. And I think one of the things that, well, first of all, I feel like if we stopped taking everything for granted for just one moment and think on a little bit more metaphysical level, we are all organized forms of energy within, existing in a space of energy, and in that we are all unified and intertwined and interacting. And so through the act of making music, I feel like I am working with that energy, all of the energies in the space, and shaping it, offering different currents in that energy, but that's absolutely an interaction. And I think that experience, it speaks to our bodies, which I very much feel is the first order of business in music making. I think it's a visceral experience on the first order. If you'll allow me, my order of priorities are booty, then heart, then mind. So I think for a complete musical experience addresses all of those aspects of our being, and I'm interested in scintillating and moving emotionally, but also there's I think the entry point is the body, and so there's that aspect. But I also think in addressing that fundamental shared energy commonality, you're dealing on a plane of oneness, and it's sort of it's a means of unveiling our fundamental unity. The other thing I would say is that, I also alluded to this earlier, art, I believe, increasingly is, or this is my current perspective on it, I'm open to that evolving, of course. I think so often, like with so many things in life, we are distracted by the bright, shiny objects that are at the surface level, right? And in music, you might even see that, like the information plane of the music, like notes and melodies and how things are interacting harmonically, all of which is absolutely fascinating and I'm obsessed with. At the same time, I do believe that and that stuff needs to be presented to a certain degree of care and abilities, so as an entry point to what's really going on. But I would say that, and there is music that is made that it mostly exists on that level. But I think what it's really about, once we're able to get beyond that, is again the nature of our presence. And for me, there's the place that I'm always trying to get to in the music making is this elusive zone of like a meditation of releasing oneself continuously and deeper into the very moment, the unfolding moment, and in not imposing on the music all the structures that we've learned and all the things that we know will work, you know, the flashy objects that we know will impress, but really allowing oneself to fall deeper and deeper into the moment and just exist in a state of wonder and curiosity and accept what is in that moment, and then interact with it, shape gestures of relation one after the next in that unfolding moment, and staying in that place. And that's the transcendent place. That's the place I'm always trying to get to. And again, it's elusive, but we try to keep releasing ourselves to it. And I think that both for ourselves, but also modeling that, sharing that with one another in this space, for instance, any performance situation, that is, I think, one of the most important roles that a musician or an artist can offer. It's a service to all of us, and I think it's really important to open up that portal and to reinforce that that opening to that, again, to that place of fundamental oneness. I'll stop talking now and I'll play a piece for my grandmother, Diana Wallace Crump. She also, in addition to being a great storyteller, she loved music and would sing a lot, and I spent a lot of time at her house and lived there a few summers, and poured through her record collection. And this isn't one of the pieces that was in there, but I always play it for her. It's called It Never Entered My Mind.
Thank you for that. I know that as we think about this time coming to an end, a time for question and answer, it's always an opportunity. So we have a roaming microphone. Questions that you have about the bass, about Stephan, of course, but anything that you bring this morning or has come to you now that you've been in this space, here's a time to do that, and we'll have a little Q&A time and then one more piece before we end. But I'm opening the floor for a question. I'll bring the mic to you.
How does, I think of music and math intertwined a lot. How does your love of physics inform your music or your enjoyment of music?
That's, well, I believe and have learned that they are, and you know, on one level, I just understand it and don't really feel the need to analyze that much, but certainly I do feel, I mean, I alluded to metaphysical perspectives just earlier, certainly, which I think can help us get to that place that we're hoping to get to. But on the sort of the harder mathematical level, you know, I also mentioned that my father is an architect. There are generations of architects in my mother's family, and then even with my uncle's sculpture, I feel like there's a lot to structure and form, and that there's different ways. So say in composition, there's some times where it can go back and forth. How to answer this? Okay, so let's say one of the things that really captured me as a teenager is progressive rock, and I'm known these days for creating music that has different types of meters and different, I think of them as different shapes. But like Yes and Rush and Led Zeppelin, some of their song structures and metric underpinnings to the music were different from your more typical forms. And to me, before I knew what that was, what the math was underpinning those shapes, it drew me. It was like a different type of elasticity or gravitational pull that was created through those different shapes. And then it was only later that I went to learn that music and sort of lift the hood and see what was going on in there, that I discovered that it was, you know, you could analyze it based on different numbers, maybe like 7 beats instead of 4 beats, or you know, you can break it down into different groupings of 2s and 3s. But so that's sort of an entry level in thinking of both there, you know, that there's mathematical underpinnings that give structure to what's going on, but at the same time, then it becomes about working out mathematical possibilities to approach the music, but then digesting those, and then again getting them into that physical plane that I talked about that's so critical, I feel like, in getting it to be not just a cerebral exercise, but a real full body communication, full being communication. So I will, I'm just kind of running with this question now, but you know, I take those mathematical underpinnings, I digest them basically, and then I work with them with my body. I dance with them, I walk down the street, I sing, I clap, I move, and get the different cadences going. So I can convert it to tensions, different beautiful tensions that I feel in my body that then I try to communicate in the music. And I'll add that music is really about shaping tension and release at different levels simultaneously. And so and that includes song form, tension and release in song form, you know, all the way from tension and release of just the textural rub of two tones together, all the way to rhythmic tensions, melodic and harmonic, to song form, or even album order. You know, it's all about shaping the flow of tension and release, and sort of what is the magnetism in the relation among structures.
I have another question here.
Okay, thanks. How did your parents nurture your musical talent, ability, for lack of a better word? We have a 6-year-old that chose the violin herself, but I'm not sure how, and she's talented, she's obviously got the ear, how to nurture that love of an instrument that she chose herself.
That's a great question, thank you. And it's that's a trick, you know. I'm still trying to figure that out with my own children, you know, and there's, of course, not just one path to that. I would say certainly exposing them to as much creativity, musical and otherwise, but yeah, lots of live music to get to that real visceral exchange, that spiritual exchange that happens in that particular way that can't be replicated. I mean, you know, recordings are wonderful. I love recording, I love making records, and I love listening to recordings, but it's, you know, there's no substitute for that live exchange. So that, and you know, anything, like beyond certainly finding the right teachers, finding good, nurturing teachers who have a balance of challenging and supporting. You know, then there's always that question of like, how hard do you push, like, or do you give them space? You know, there's no one answer to that either. But you know, I feel like anything you're doing to nurture and maintain that sense of curiosity and openness and appreciation for everything. You know, my influences are as much a tree as they are a particular musical artist, you know, or a great book or a poem or an experience, you know. But I think ultimately it's about, you know, I alluded to this earlier, it's about trying to maintain that sense of wonder and curiosity and love, you know, within each moment. So however you figure out how to, to do that.
Well, Stephan, thank you for that. And as our time is coming to a close, I'm just mindful to give you an opportunity to offer us one more piece. And before you begin, just to say to all of you who've joined us here in person and those of you who are joining us online, we are grateful, we're so grateful that you've engaged Grace St. Luke's today, and give thanks for Stephan Crump. But I'll let him introduce his final piece, and then we will end our time for 10:15.
Thank you, Ollie, and thank you all for sharing this time and space together. It's been really special being here with you. I want to close with a piece that I often like to close with. I did so last night, but it's inspired by and dedicated to a very special lady who had a big impact on me as a child here, and it is called Rosie.
great day, friends. Peace.
Brother.